fiction or whether we're doing documentary, I think most of us are interested in what our experience has been in living in the border and how that reflects in the stories that we tell and in the themes that I guess we carry with us regardless of wherever we are, because I know some of us are in Texas, you know, some of us are in New York, I'm in California and things like that. But I think everything that we experience through the border is something that we carry, and it's going to be a voice that keeps echoing in our work. And that's why I think this panel is so interesting, because there's this need for identity, of finding where we belong, who we are regardless of where we are, and how this merging of cultures defines us as people and as creators. So a lot of the work, and I mention all of that because a lot of the work that I do, it is fiction, but the main themes that I always focus on is identity, where do we belong, and how do the characters go through the solitude that we experiment. And obviously the solitude that I always gravitate towards is the solitude that we may feel when we don't find a place where we belong, or while we're trying to figure out our identity. Just because of the same things that I think I mentioned in other occasions, is coming from Mexico City, living in the border of Ciudad Juarez and El Paso, and then going to Austin and California. It's really like a big mesh of things that, even though a lot of the times you think that you're okay with it, a lot of the other times you really don't know who you are or what you're doing. And that's kind of the things that I like to portray in the work that I do. The last short film that I did was a sci-fi film called Windows, and it does have to do a lot of identity, the difference of language, where you are, who you are, and where you belong, and trying to focus just right now on the big themes of border filmmaking, since this is for El Paso and Juarez and the Las Cruces. I did my thesis film when I was at UT Austin, called Entre Líneas, and it was basically that. It was a short about, you know, two friends that live on different sides of the border and the struggle that they're going through, that I can show a clip wherever Angie thinks that it's okay. And that's kind of like what I've been working. I have two feature scripts that I'm doing. One, it's a horror one that's based in Mexico City, and it's the same thing about the solitude of a person, you know, that's haunted, but of trying to figure out where he belongs. And the whole idea is whether people figure out if he's really haunted or if it's in his head. And there's another one that's based in El Paso, that's based kind of like after World War, and, you know, all the different types of immigration that was happening and how the population was changing in El Paso. But it's also a horror thriller of this new family that comes of different cultures and how they merge together. So as you can see, I find the horror in the trying to belong, but also how more powerful it makes us. And I guess that at the end, that's what I take from it. You know, this merging of culture just makes us better and stronger in the way that we can see things. And I think that it's a great tool that we have as filmmakers to be able to share those visions.
Absolutely. I love that, because when I first think of horror, I don't always immediately associate it with such strong themes. And so, you know, that I love that you're integrating all of that into your work. And if you do want to show something, please feel free to show it right now.
Yeah, I can show. Well, obviously I don't have like trailers for those because it's writing, but I can show you the one that I did of my thesis in El Paso and Ciudad Juarez. So give me 1 second. Hold on, can't see here.
Living on the largest Mexican-American border, Caroline and Ricardo are stuck between two worlds. compromise their identities. Their cultures force them to pick sides.
So what? Now you only live out here? Te vas a perder la guerra en las bandas solo porque te quieres chingar a la pochita.
Their friendship will have to bridge the differences between them.
Estos piensan ligerados por una razón. Va encontrando por el norte latido a tu corazón. Si la línea es más corta, la tierra intenta florecer. Sé que no soy más que raíz, en tierra firme en mi país, y puedo entrar más que salir. Si aún te quedas, ¿a dónde voy va mi nariz? Con tiempos buenos para vivir, ¿a dónde voy con este amor? Frontera soy, ¿a dónde voy va mi raíz? Frontera soy, ¿a dónde voy con este amor? Frontera soy, ¿a dónde voy va mi nariz? Frontera soy, ¿a dónde voy con este amor? Frontera soy.
So yeah, that was the trailer that for that film that we did in Juarez and in El Paso. And one of the things that I was really proud about that was that a lot of the crew we got from there, a lot of like the artists that were the musicians that did like compose special songs for the film and that did their live performances were from El Paso and Ciudad Juarez. So it was really nice to go back and be able to do that in terms of those projects. And the difference between that kind of, because that's like very like kind of like drama based, you know, in the story, but I can show you kind of like the difference with the Windows one. And just it's also, do I have time or should I not?
Yeah.
Okay, so I can show real quick this other one. That's the Windows. That's the latest one that we did. That's also with a lot of talent from El Paso.
Good morning, Luce. Did you sleep well? Sweet dreams again? You may experience a desire for social interaction. Hola, yo soy Luz. Who else would you be talking to? ¿Dónde está? You know where she went. Que descanses. This is a place that I call my
So awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, and that was the same. Like most of our crew was from El Paso, and it's just people that, you know, we get together, we do all of this. The main actress, Gabi Ostos, is from El Paso. My cinematographer, Eliane Fenton, from El Paso. My VFX supervisor and the motion graphics director that did all the look is Jaime Cano, also from El Paso. So I think that it's just keeping all of this talent together and being able to do this because we share that same vibe and need to put this out there. So together we just have more force to do it.
Absolutely. I love that. Labu, you want to go next?
Sure. Thank you, Maru, for showing your work. And thank you, Angie, for your wonderful introductions. I just finished a panel with the Juarez filmmakers, so I'm kind of like, I gotta get into the groove of talking about me, because so please bear with me. I'm a documentary filmmaker from Juarez and El Paso. I live in New York now. For a long time, I was doing only photojournalism. And it was in 2013 when I started sort of going through immigration issues. I feared being deported, and I sort of remember it being a really dark time personally for me. And there was something in me that sort of, I just had like this realization where I thought, am I going to stay in this dark place, or am I going to use my, you know, where I'm at to like share these stories with people? So I picked up my camera, and then I was like, oh, this can do video too. So I started making films, and something really special happened where I felt that it wasn't me telling the stories, but rather like the stories were telling themselves through me. And every like film that I've made on the border or about my friends on the border, it has sort of felt like that. It has sort of felt like I'm just this like vehicle for the stories to be told. So to me, it's an honor to tell stories in Juarez and in El Paso. I live in New York now, and this whole year, 2020, I've been mostly in New York, and this has been the first year that I haven't visited El Paso as I used to, like every month or so. So I feel like I'm going through this like artist and personal transformation where I'm sort of, I was like 1 foot in La Frontera and 1 foot in New York, and now life is like, okay, no, like you're fully in New York. So I'm having to like reconcile with that and consider myself a New Yorker, but also always a Juarense. And how do I tell stories that I can identify with as a you know, being in both of these identities. So I worked recently, my most recent project was I worked with a nonprofit in Queens. It was a South Asian nonprofit that focuses on supporting immigrants. So that was completely new to me. For me, telling stories about immigration was always Juarez, El Paso, Frontera. And now being here, I've sort of realized that the immigrant experience is so diverse. I mean, I was I was doing interviews and editing in like Mandarin and like Hindi and like all of these languages that I had to get transcribed, and then Google Translate was my best friend. I'm like, please, I hope that this transcription like is actually accurate, you know. And it's been so humbling and also so like expanding to work in these different projects that are teaching me about the diversity of the immigrant experience. I'm also an educator and public speaker, and I was the fellow of the Laundromat Project in 2019, and I'm continuing to collaborate with them, which I'm really, really excited. They're an organization that has helped me incorporate myself in New York. And yeah, I can show you also a couple of clips if you'd like. But I think I have to stop recording. Oh no, to do screen share. 1 second. So the first clip that I want to show you is something that I made earlier this year, and it happened right before the lockdown, the pandemic lockdown. I was actually in El Paso working with Jasmine and Ileana on a commercial for the 2020 census. And in the middle of the production, we heard the news that our dear friend Isabel Cabanillas had just been murdered in Ciudad Juarez. So are you able to see my screen? Yes? Okay. So I after the production, we just went to the streets and marched with all of the women of Juarez who were protesting this murder. So it's a 1-minute clip of the protest, and here it goes. Are you able to see it? I'm sorry. It says my screen sharing is paused. So
Yeah, we can't, we can see the image, but not the video.
let me see if I exit. There you go. Can you see there better?
It's the same image, but try it. Maybe it'll play.
Okay. Is it working? Oh,
Sorry.
let me see. Let me try something else. Let's try this one.
Yeah.
So that was one clip, and I want to show you just one last clip. It's two scenes from two different projects. Are you able to see the image here of the women protesting? So these are projects that I felt, as I told you earlier, projects that were told, that chose me. I didn't really choose them. So here it goes.
El capitalismo, el proyecto neoliberal es el responsable de tantas masacres a nivel mundial de todas las mujeres del mundo. Por la transformación revolucionaria de las sociedades. Ya basta de tanta sobreexplotación del hombre con el hombre.
Pasa con esta madre.
Contigo y tu familia. Ay, cuídate mucho,
Claro
mi
que sí,
amor.
madre. Aparte Cristo negra. Pues ya nos ponemos de acuerdo, ¿eh? Sí. ¿Está bien? ¿Se siente bien?
Sí.
No, madre. Con eso le
Perdón. Perdónale a que Dios te perdone.
Claro que sí. Nos ponemos de acuerdo, ¿eh?
Sí.
¿Está bien?
Sí, estoy bien.
Qué bueno, madre. Parece que estoy bien, ¿eh?
Sí, claro.
Me vio, ¿eh?
Ay, qué hermoso.
Cuídense, madre. Cuídense mucho, ¿eh?
So thank you for watching those moments. They're all clips from different projects. So thank you.
So beautiful. Thank you for sharing those with us. Ileana, you want to go next?
Sure. Hi, everybody. It's so nice to be here with all of you. Thanks, Angie, for the invitation. I don't really have much to show right now because I'm in post-production on my first feature documentary that's called Lo que dejamos atrás, What We Leave Behind. And we're in a rough cut stage right now. So I would want to show it, but it's not ready for the public yet. And so that project I've been working on since 2014, and I work in both documentary and narrative fiction, but mostly now the last few years I've been mostly working on doc, and it's a personal story about my grandfather who recently passed away last year, and which Laura actually also worked on and shot for me a bit. And so I had been following his story for quite a few years, and he worked as a bracero for many years in the 50s. And if you're not familiar with the bracero program, the US government during the 50s or during World War II contracted Mexican farm workers to work the fields in the US. And so he was one of the many men that did that, would come back and forth. And so he raised 6 children on his own and was just such a fighter. And so I was interested in telling that, capturing that oral history, but the project has turned into something really different now. The last year of his life, he decided to build a house in his little town in the state of Durango, for our family to have a home to come home to. So he embarked on this project when he was unable to travel. And he used to take this like monthly, really long bus rides between Durango and going to El Paso. So that was his way of life. And he was always constantly going back and forth. So when he was unable to travel, he decided to build this house. And the story focuses on the last year of his life building the house and my connection with him. So it's, been quite a journey. And I'm excited about it now. With COVID this year, it pushed our plans for release. So we'll release it next year. But thankfully, I shot everything I needed. I know a lot of filmmakers are right now dealing with that because of COVID haven't been able to shoot. So that's been my main project the last few years. Right now, what I'm trying to go back is into narrative fiction, and I'm actually working on a collective anthology of sorts with 5 other filmmakers from Texas, and we want to. Right now it's untitled, but we call it the Latina Omnibus Project. So it's getting 5 Latina filmmakers together to tell their version of Texas, to tell stories that we don't really get to see about Latinos in Texas. I mean, we always see Latinos portrayed in LA or, in New York, but the absence of what does it mean to be Latina, growing up on the border, growing up just anywhere in Texas, like those stories are missing. And so that's what I'm working on now, is this collective anthology, which will be a fiction feature. And dabbling with that and teaching. I just started a new job this year, right before COVID hit, at UT. So I'm teaching film production there. And so it's been quite, a weird year of a lot of transitions, but really thankful for the work and the opportunity to keep telling stories. And just like Amaru was saying earlier, and Laura touched upon this as well, is just, growing up in El Paso, you carry that with you everywhere, right? And even though I'm mostly in Austin now, but I'm constantly going back and forth, and all of my work in one way or another is informed by growing up there and my family, and just the community there. I think it's a really unique, beautiful place. And a place that I didn't really appreciate, I think, until I had left, and that I'm really thankful for. And just the fluidity of it and the complexity and just even the landscape is something that continually inspires my work. So just thankful to be here in company with all of you, and thanks again.
I'm so grateful for you and for your time being here.
Of course. Thanks, Angie.
Christina, you want to go next?
Hi, Angie, this is great that you're bringing all of us together. It's really inspiring. Thank you so much. We really need that right now. It's a new day, with the election behind us, hopefully. I mean, I guess we're still dealing with it, but I'm feeling pretty positive right now. Growing up in El Paso, I never really thought about filmmaking as an avenue or a pathway for me. I always just thought about what I could do to help my family. I was the first one in my family to go to college. And as a child of immigrants, you're either going to be a doctor or a lawyer if you're from the border, maybe an engineer, Anyway, so my sister said she would be the doctor. So that means I'll be the lawyer. One of the great things about that, though, is that when I got to UT Austin, I was able to explore other elective subjects, and that's how I discovered media. And it sounds so naive, but I discovered in college that you could actually make your own movies. I didn't realize that. I thought you just watched what was given to you on television or the theaters, and you just didn't go or turned it off if you didn't like it. But one thing that was really exciting to me was I was also learning about Chicano studies at the same time. And I just was recognizing that all of the images I was seeing when I was growing up were either, whether they were from the Mexican broadcasters or the American broadcasters, because you get both airwaves, is that everyone was always white. Didn't matter. And so I never found myself there. So this idea of a sense of belonging that Maru was talking about was very much a driving force in my practice. Is just deciding that that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to see myself. That's very simple, right? And so that's where I started to make documentaries mostly as I was learning how to put together a story. Then I put together a film called Dirty Laundry, a homemade telenovela. And that was a film I brought home to El Paso after I graduated college. And I used my family as the actors. And, I did cast the lead, but I used my family. I used found footage, just like anything I could find to kind of scrape together a film, with absolutely no support. And it just, it really did feel like you were a lone wolf out there and just trying to discover new ways of making work, because there was really very little support, especially for the themes I was interested in, which were themes about race and class, and I wanted to look at the border in a much different way that people were used to. So I remember this feeling that if there was a white filmmaker who wanted to make a film about the border, that they were seen as risky and artistic and crafty, and so they would get funding. But if I wanted to make a film about the border, it was seen as something that, or I was not objective. I didn't have my fairness was questioned, my objectivity. And it's just like, something that I've been constantly dealing with throughout the different films that I've made. I've made now 3 feature films that have all been broadcast on PBS. And it's been great, but if it wasn't for PBS, I don't know where I would have gone, because PBS has a mandate to have diverse films or diverse representations. It's our taxpayer money, so we have to have that. But I don't know. I mean, I think that we're in a different, we have a different landscape right now, and I'm getting a sense of it from all of us here on the panel. So I'm really excited to hear everyone's perspectives and history and ways of working, because it's been very different from how I did it. Anyway, so right now, what I've been discovering is a love for the form itself. Like, it started, my interest in film started as a really deliberate way to try to create a new message or kind of interrupt the dominant message about what we hear about the border narrative. It was like just very deliberate. And in doing that, it was more of a political charge. And now I feel like there's this deeper respect for the medium and the art. And I've been trying to see how, not just thematically, I can think about the borderlands, but how I can also think about it artistically in the cinematic language. So what does that mean to have a border cinema? Like, I'm very interested in defining border identity, defining a border cinema, a border way of seeing. And these questions have been plaguing me for the 20 years I've been working, along with my partner, who also deals with them in a different way. Like, he focuses on immigration specifically. But together, he and I ended up finally making a film together for the first time. And it's called The Infiltrators. We just finished showing the PBS broadcast, just ended just the day before I think the day of the election was the final day you could stream it on POV. And I can show you a clip of it, a trailer. But one of the I guess one of the ideas behind making this film was, I guess, 2 ideas. One was, this idea of like where do I belong has really been something I've thought about with every film that I make. And meeting these young undocumented activists, it was really great to see that they did not have that question at all. It was like not even interesting to them. Like they don't care. They belong because they're here and that's it. You know, it's like punto. So I found that super interesting because they had this really unique, radical way of looking at this living in the United States, right? And very different from my dad, who was formerly undocumented and was their age, you know, at the time that we shot the documentary. He had a whole different way of looking at, you know, being in the US than they did. So that was really interesting to me, but also the idea that we had to create a new way of telling the story because there was half of the story we couldn't see, was also very interesting. So those were creative challenges for me that I really loved. And basically the story follows undocumented activists who decide to, they want to stop deportations. And the way that they think that it's the best way to stop deportations is to get themselves detained on purpose, to infiltrate an immigration detention center and help set people free from the inside. So together, they work with a team on the outside who's also undocumented, and they put pressure on the system to try to bring it down. So I can show you a clip now of that because it's the latest piece. So I'm gonna share my screen. Let's see. Oh, let's see, share screen. Oh wait, before I do, let me pull this up. Google Chrome, I think this is it. All right, do you see it? The Infiltrators POV official trailer? Okay, cool, let me play.
Inside the matrix of 200 detention centers, almost 40,000 immigrants are locked up. They don't get a court-appointed lawyer. They don't even get a sentence. They just get warehoused. Inside, there's been cases of abuse and even mysterious death. Well, tonight, I have one question. Hi, how can I get in?
You're gonna be transported to a detention facility.
We're all young illegals. Our mission, stop the deportations. Our strategy, get into the detention center and get people out.
There's a woman's side to this detention center. I called my mom and my dad, and I said, this is what I'm about to do. They were scared for their daughter.
Call this number with your case. They're waiting for your call.
Comunicar un cuchillo resinoso.
We can pass out a lot more phone numbers now.
Vamos a tratar de terminar 600 antes del almuerzo.
We knew there was hundreds of men that should not be.
You're coming with us. What do you want to play? No. I don't know what you're up to, but from now on, things will be very different.
Her husband was beating her, and she finally went to the cops to turn him in. Like, she thought she was doing the right thing, and then they detained her.
This wouldn't be it's like it's there's somebody that's being deported in 2 hours. It's like danger. Let's get them.
Why were you willing to be arrested and deported to find out what was happening inside this jail?
We had already lost this town, but else was the absolute.
Great, yeah, so thank you. So that's the latest piece, but it's not exactly set along physical border, but it's just everything about borderlands is informing every decision here in terms of storytelling, like the thematics. But yeah, I guess I'll end it there because we can hear from our last panelist.
Thank you so much for sharing. That's awesome. Maru just said that she highly recommends it, and I still need to watch it. So it's so exciting. Thank you. Yeah, Yasmin, may we hear from you?
Hi, thank you. It's been really cool listening to everybody's projects that you're working on and just, you know, who you are. Christina, it's really nice to meet you. I'm just so happy that we're able to have this panel, you know. Something that Maru talked about at the very beginning was just the amount of local talent that she was able to source from to make windows. And I feel like we need more panels like this to show that these people are here, you know. I'm in Albuquerque, but I grew up in Las Cruces. I met Angie making Memory Box, her short film about 4 years ago, right before Frontera. And it was just like, you never know where something's gonna lead, right? I was the first AC on that project, and then we ended up creating Frontera, and like now here we all are 4 years later. At the time, I think when Frontera was around 2016, I had just graduated college. I went to NMSU for filmmaking, and I was definitely in the mindset of like, okay, I graduated from CMI, now I need to move to LA. Like, in order to succeed, I have to leave New Mexico and I have to go to LA to do it there. So I ended up working as a camera PA on a feature just right out of college. And I learned a lot, and I'm really grateful for the time that I had in LA. I ended up working for the ACLU SoCal, and it started out as an internship, and then it just kind of like became larger than that. It became more of a freelance position where I would make documentaries for them and like go out and whatever topics they had, we would make little shorts about the cases that they were fighting. And I really liked that, but I feel like I just missed New Mexico so much. And what brought me back was another feature here in Truth or Consequences called Rose. And everybody was talking about Albuquerque and how cool Albuquerque was, and just, you know, move there and get work there. So for the last 4 years, I've been in Albuquerque, or 3 years. 2017, I moved back to Albuquerque, and I've been working in the camera department, got into the 600, and kind of alongside that, I've been working as a director and a cinematographer. And I guess all that to say is that I feel like as an artist, I've only just started to build that community that is so necessary for making the artwork and making the films that we want to make. And it doesn't have to be outside of New Mexico. It doesn't have to be outside of El Paso. We have these people all around us. And I'm just, yeah, like, so this last year of COVID, it's crazy to think that in January, Laura and Eliana and I were all making a commercial in El Paso. But it's been kind of a transformative year for me in terms of my own seeing myself as an artist, first and foremost, seeing myself as a director and a writer and somebody who can make these projects happen. I've been working on a feature pretty much all year, and I submitted it to the Sundance Latinx Lab in June. And at the beginning of October, the outreach coordinator sent me an email and asked if I would submit again for the second round. So it's been a wild month. Just all of October was really intense. I'm working on a feature right now for Netflix, and it was basically like writing this feature while being at work. I'd get home after working for 12 hours and I would write for like 3 hours and then go to bed. I finally figured out a system where I would write ideas at work and then I'd get home and write and implement them. But I submitted that on the 22nd of October, And it still feels like a little baby bird has just left the nest. And we'll see what happens with that. But either way, that project is going to get made. It's too personal to not get made, and I put too much love and attention into it to not, see it through. But it's basically a feature called My Name is Lupe, and it's based off of, I put a lot of myself in it, and it's a coming out story about this girl named Lupe, who she is in a very traditionally Mexican family, and it's very kind of slice of life, and her realizing that she's queer and having that awakening of having her first crush on another girl, how that affects the relationship she has with her mom and her grandma. And in the backdrop behind that is she's trying to lucid dream, but she's unable to do that until she fully accepts herself. So I've inserted a lot of Aztec imagery, a lot of things that I've never seen in a movie that I would love to be seen in this way, I was really inspired by just reading about Coatlicue, the Aztec serpent goddess. So I have all these imageries, and it's the symbolism of Coatlicue and La Virgen de Guadalupe, and all of these kind of I guess, how do I describe it? All of these different kind of like female figures in Aztec mythology, and what they symbolize to us now, and how that like parallels with Lupe's story. Basically, Lupe not being La Virgen de Guadalupe, not being this perfect image of like the Mexican woman, and associating herself more with Coatlicue. So that's what I've been working on for the last year. And I could show some clips if we have time. I could show my reel. What do you think, Angie?
Sure. We are almost approaching 4. Okay. And I only tell you that because we work together. Otherwise, but yeah, can you show us one? Like, can you show us your reel?
Yeah, I'll just show the reel. Let's see. Open it up here. And I wish we could just like show each other scripts, I wish I had something more, recent to show you all. But COVID's really good for writing. Let's see. All right. So share screen. Sorry, everybody. Okay, we're doing this. All right, can you see that? Okay.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Big claps to everybody. Thank you so much for sharing your work. And Hasmin, you're absolutely right. Like, this is an opportunity for us to see what each other do and to celebrate it. And so that's very much what this panel is about. The other thing that I want to sort of leave time for before we end is just for everyone, you know, I think that when, you know, we even described the theme of this panel, a lot of it is in the theme of our organization, which is to uplift each other and to help create other opportunities for other people, specifically those who are attending and watching our panel today. And one of the questions is, you know, what it is that, let me pull it up real quick, but what advice do you have for those who are from this region who want to make films here? And what is your advice for those who want to work outside of this region? And anyone can jump in.
Yeah, I'll jump in. Having spent the time there, and I know that a lot of times when you're in El Paso and where you're in Ciudad Juarez, there's all these other issues that a lot of times are happening just because it's a border town, you know, and everything that everybody has mentioned is something that we all struggle with, of trying to show the reality of it and not just let it be ruled by the media or by other films or by news that a lot of the times only focus on the negative side of it. And I think all of us want to be able to show both sides, right? We're not saying that they're not negative things, but that's like with any city. And I feel like there's a lack of the good things, right? So we have all this in our minds that a lot of times we don't know exactly how to move forward. But given all the political also scenarios that we've been living, I think that there's something that keeps shining through, right? And we heard it like just lately, like with the inauguration that they had and the speech that they had, that it's like more women are getting their voice being heard. And I feel like this is the opportunity that we have to keep doing that, you know. And whether for whatever reason we haven't been able to do it in the past, this goes for everybody, and not only women seeing it, but it's like you really do need to take advantage of your own experiences at where you live, because every one of us kind of like gets naked to show this is the stories that we say, and it's so vulnerable. But if you take advantage of the place that you are with the resources that you have, there's nothing that's going to be more honest than that. You just need to be honest to yourself and be able to reach out to the people that you have, because there's always going to be a support group that you have, even if they don't understand necessarily film or the industry or how to do this. A lot of times it's the people that believe in you the most that will give you that uplifting to get your mind in a space that, you know, this is what I can do. And also, like, you have an organization like this, like Frontera in El Paso, and all these panelists here that maybe you hadn't heard of, and now you're hearing of them, that gives you an opportunity to do your own research. Like, which people do you like their work? What else are they doing? You know, social media connects everybody. And if there's anything that I can give back, I always like to support new people if they have questions, or if they just want me to read something, or if it's post-production related or visual effects. I'm always happy to do that, because in the end, this is all a chain that links us. And that's what's going to make us stronger, because from my mistakes, other people can learn. And other people that have new visions that are growing up will inspire me to keep going through the struggles, because this is a combined struggle. We're always going to be in it together. So to know that you have that community and somebody that at least you know that it's going through the same challenges, that always helps. But it really is of opening up your mind and your eyes to the community that you already have, because there's a lot of talent in El Paso and Ciudad Juarez and Las Cruces, that a lot of times it's like we want to go like super big. Oh no, because I need to do all this. But start with what you have close to you. Start with what your roots are, and that's going to make you strong enough to keep growing, you know, and expanding. And what will give you is that your vision will travel.
Oh, that's such a good answer. Yes. Ileana, I know that you have to leave soon, so I wanted to ask if you specifically had anything that you wanted to say.
Oh, you're on mute.
Either in regards to this question or anything else.
Yeah, I think that you know, echoing off of what Maru was saying, I feel there's just so many. I think it's so, you know, El Paso is so rich, and the border in general, of like stories and people, and you know, I lived in LA for quite a few years after I went to film school there, and the beauty of the region is that people aren't jaded by film yet. You know, they're very open to, if you want to shoot at a restaurant, you know, you can find locations for free, and I think that that's so wonderful, and the community is just so open to film, and so I think exploring that and taking advantage of that is great. I think it's great to also go to other places and see what the filmmaking community is like in LA, and I mean Austin and New York. But I have found that to make films in it, or you know, making stuff in El Paso is great because it's just in terms of economically and also the resources there that are available. And the community has been just always so generous, and just wonderful. So I'm thankful for that, and thankful to always go back. And at the same time, I think that it's, you know, like Maru was saying, important to, you know, we can't make films by ourselves. So, you know, expanding that network and continuing to collaborate. And, you know, if you see someone's work and you're like, oh, I really like their vibe, and just reaching out to them and getting to know them as a person, I think is first and foremost important. And that's sometimes, I think that's missing in other cities. It's where it's a bit more, I think, competitive, and so it's a different feeling, right? Interacting with other filmmakers. I mean, not to say that it's always like that, but it's different, I think, in El Paso, and for me in Austin too. I think people are coming at it as an art form, but in a very communal place, and that's what I find quite healing and quite, for my own work. I need that. So yeah, I don't know if I have a specific answer for that, but I think taking advantage of those resources there, but also being open to other possibilities, I think is always a good thing. And to also not be afraid. I think, you know, when I was at UCLA, there was a constant pressure, and I think in film schools, and this is to the detriment, I think, of film schools, is that there's constant pressure of having to make something, and, you know, the expectation of it doing well or going to festivals. And it's like, we're all constantly learning and practicing. And so with my students now, I try to tell them, you know, you're gonna, excuse my language, you're gonna fuck up. It's okay. It's okay to get rejected. It's okay to mess up, and whatever that means. I mean, I don't know if there's a way to mess up in art, but you know, like, you don't have to constantly be, I don't know. I think it's okay to test and to try new things and make mistakes and get I mean, it's all part of the process. So I think that's something that I've just I don't know, I come to terms with, in the sense where it's like, I'm not looking at it like, oh, I'm going to make this because it's going to get into XYZ festival, but more so like, what is it saying? How is my voice in this? And what community am I trying to reach, and how, right? And how am I able to tell stories of my community and see their faces on screen? And that's the goal there, and that's already success in itself, right? So yeah, anyway, but sorry, that was a little long-winded.
And just to make your projects, right? Because it's like, just jumping off of what Ileana was saying, is just to not stop yourself before you even made it, you know, to go through that process. And sure, it may not be a perfect movie or the way that you imagined it, but you won't know what you would have learned if you don't just do it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's something that holds us back a lot of the time, especially as women and women of color. And it's like, you're our own biases that we have against ourselves and just our own
Yeah.
constructs of like, how are we, like, I don't know. So there's a lot to get over, but I think that part of that process is just being like, I'm making this because I like it. And, you know, I had a student approach me the other day, and she was like, you know, a professor told me that my work sucked, that it wasn't good. And she's like, I feel like I should give up. Like, I don't know. And I was like, I'm sorry, no one has the right to tell you that. Sure, there's constructive criticism, but the fact that someone's already telling you that, you know, like, I was like, screw it. Like, I'm sorry, who gives a shit? Like, you fucking go and go do your work and go and like, and try it out. And, you know, it's like, so yeah.
And not compare yourself to other filmmakers.
Yeah,
you know?
which
I think
is still incredibly hard, but you know.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's been a big one in my own life, is like not comparing myself to the people that I look up to, but rather learning how to collaborate with the people that I look up to.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, like it's not a competition. We're different people with different experiences, and we're gonna make something. We're gonna make our own thing, and why can't we work together? You know.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think and touching back on what you both were saying, I think that one of the things that sometimes I guess that we drag on as being women is like, we're like you were saying, like we're always thinking like, oh, I can't do this and I need to ask permission and this needs to be 10 times better, and if I made a mistake, nobody's ever gonna call me, oh my God. And I think that's a mentality that I'm struggling, but I'm trying to break free from. But that men don't have, you know, based in years. Men's like, they make a mistake, I don't care, I'm still gonna get hired, and this was awesome. And it always happens. So I think that that's something that we should embrace, because we have amazing stories to tell. We can have like the same talent, and this isn't like a man female battle. It's not about that. It's just about us getting the courage, you know, and being less afraid. Of course, it's terrifying when you create your own art, you know, but you need to keep doing it. So I think that it's more about that also, and us like supporting each other to be like, yes. And I've learned a lot from my mistakes. They have broken me into a million pieces, and I'm still like gluing it back together. But that's what makes us stronger. Yeah.
I've had some first ACs say pretty terrible things to me, you know, but it does make you stronger. You learn how to roll it off your shoulder, and you learn from it and move on. And also I think the most important thing is, in that particular scenario, is learning how to not let it affect you, because it's going to happen again, you know, and learning how to like be within your own self and like be okay and like move forward. Sorry.
I want to step in because I think that there's this something that I've been learning as I've been growing up is that there's this in my case anyway, there's this immediate tendency to blame myself for not making something that's good, in quotations good, because you know, it's subjective art form. So, you know, it's like, who's to say that it's good or not? It's like, we need more cultural power brokers. Like, you know, what's great is that you have this festival right now. So you get to show what you think is good, right? This is like, you know, we're defining it. But there's this difference in like, I have to stop myself from doing that, because then there's also this systematic racism out there that is controlling the way that we're looking at art, to the stories, you know. So who's to say that a narrative that we're creating about the border is not going to be accessible to the mainstream? I mean, I think it's like, I'm always having to question, it's like, is it really me, or is it just that, is it a combination of both, perhaps? You know, that, you know, there's these power brokers, these people who are defining or critiquing art that don't understand borders, or like, you know who we are, and it's the, how do we push back against that? It's by changing the way that we do our work so that it translates, or is it by checking them? You know, it's like, I mean, maybe again a combination, but I think it's yeah, it's too simplistic to say it's like, oh, that just wasn't good enough, you know. I mean, think about the cultural value of the work as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like it is, I don't know, on one level it's a combination, and on another level it's like, why does it have to be accessible? You know, like who is this for? Is it for white audiences, or is it for, you know, POC audiences, or specifically Latinx audiences? Yeah, and I think it's like feeling like not wanting to have to cater towards what is mainstream or what is accessible, and pushing against that.
Labu, did you have anything to say with regards to these questions or this topic?
Yeah, I kind of got lost in what the question was, but like I'm sort of having thoughts about my experience as a filmmaker in El Paso and Juarez, and how it really started by me just like not even knowing that I could make a film, like Cristina said, and being part of community, and how community has given my career the impulse that it needs every day, right? Like I was remembering this one time with Ili, I was like, I almost like proposed to her. I was like, will you be my producer? And she was like, what's the project? Like such a good producer, you know, like, can you pitch it to me first? But like for me, I already knew that I wanted to work with Ili, you know, or also being part of Femme Frontera, that Angie's constantly sending like, hey, we just got this call for a filmmaker here, are you able to shoot this, are you able to work with this publication, and so on. And or being part of like Brown Girls Doc Mafia, like I've gotten so many gigs and connections through this platform, and like sharing work with my friends, or my friends sharing work with me, and I'm just so happy that I'm part of these communities. And I am so proud of Angie and proud of us for creating this new community. Because really, this is the only way that we're going to be continuing to create our own industry in which we see ourselves represented, and we see our stories being told, and we will sort of lose this very like monotone like story, just kind of like the monopoly of stories of, you know, that people watch in this country, or that people think the United States is about, when really we have so many stories here. Like the festival yesterday, I was watching it. I don't know if the encore already happened, but there were so many stories. There was like a Navajo Nation story, and that was incredible. There was a Juarez story. It just, you know, so many stories. And I was watching a festival with a friend, and she was texting me, and she goes, these are the stories that I wish we could see every day on television. Like these stories are just so real, and like I actually feel connected to them. So like I said, I kind of got lost in what the question was, but my comment was that the most growth I've experienced in my career has been when I've made myself part of community, which you are that. So thank you.
Thank you so much for that answer, and everyone for this for your answers. Incredibly uplifting, and we've already received some comments in the chat acknowledging everything that you all are saying, and how inspiring it is. We do have to end. I could keep this going for another hour, but I know some of you have to take off. We do have our encore of the Femme Frontera Filmmaker Showcase in 45 minutes. If you've bought a ticket and you have not received a link from me, I am on it as soon as we sign off. Please, you know, watch that encore. The Q&A will also be screening directly after the showcase. I want to thank all of my panelists so much. I think one of the biggest takeaways for those of you who are watching who want to make films either in this region or outside, find your community, reach out, you know, reach out to us. Email femfrontera gmail.com as soon as we get off this call. Let us know what kind of films you want to do. I will personally hook you up with any of these wonderful, amazing ladies, whether or not you want to make a film here in LA, in Albuquerque, in New York. You now know 6 people. So take advantage, and we will provide you with all of the resources that you need. So Maru also wrote in the chat, NALIP, Texas Film Commission, us, of course, and the El Paso Film Festival. All of us are ready here, and NALAC as well. Thank you, Ramon. We're all here to help you out. So with that, thank you so much for being a part of this panel. Enjoy the rest of this showcase, and we will talk to you all soon. Thank you so much, panelists, for your time.
Thank you, Angie.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.